Have you ever had a dream so vivid that it was like watching a movie? Filmmaker James Cameron has had at least 3 dreams that have inspired or led to 3 of his most popular movies. In this dream, I'll talk about James Cameron's dream that inspired Pandora when he was just 19 years old, and I'll also look to see if there's any symbolism that can be interpreted in the dream. Hi, I'm Karen and I dream a lot, and I like to study and talk about dreams and dream interpretations and do dream interpretations for people. If you've ever had a dream that inspired you to create something, put it in the comments below. In a recent interview in GQ, James Cameron described the dream he had when he was just 19 years old. He was so excited when he woke up that he went ahead and drew what he had seen. What's cool about dreams is they can be inspiring for creating things, and there's been a lot of stories of people dreaming a story or a movie or an artwork or all sorts of different things. Novels have come to people in dreams, scientific discoveries, songs, and that's really cool. But what I think is awesome is to also look at if there's any symbols in the dreams to see if there was a message there. And often there kind of is. A lot of times in these stories that we hear about that somebody had a dream, say in this case, James Cameron dreaming about Pandora, the dreamer was in a place of exploration already. It wasn't like they were just going about their life and all of a sudden they had this dream. They were already working on a project or already in a creative kind of state or mode in their waking life, and then the dream comes to them as they're kind of more open to ideas. So for James Cameron, here's what was happening to him when he was 19 years old. This is really helpful to look at not only for the creative process, but also for the symbolism that we see in the dream. Okay, so I have it right here because I'm not going to remember his whole bio. So James Cameron, according to Wikipedia, was born in 1954, August 1954, and he was the oldest of 5 children. I can relate. I'm the oldest of 6. And when he was 17 years old, the family moved from Canada to California, right outside of LA. So that was probably a bit of a change, we can imagine. Then in 1973, when he was 19 years old, he enrolled in college. And first, he started to study physics because he liked building things. And then he switched to English. And then in Wikipedia it says he left at the end of 1974. So in that time, when he was 19 years old, when he had this dream, he was somewhere in that process of being in college, changing his major or whatever he was studying, and then leaving college. So he was a bit in a transition phase, I would say. After that, he had some odd jobs and he was still writing in his free time. And then he went into truck driving, and then in 1977 is when he went into filmmaking after seeing Star Wars, according to Wikipedia. Now, we don't know at this time if James Cameron was asking his dreams for ideas, which you can do, and that's something I'll talk about in other videos on the channel. But we do know that you don't have to ask your dreams for inspiration or creative ideas to get them, especially if you're in a kind of creative state. So it's possible that since he was writing in his spare time, he was already thinking about story ideas and world building and all that sort of thing. And it doesn't say what he was writing, and I didn't go and try to find out what kind of things he wrote about when he was a teenager. But that would be interesting to see. But we don't need to do that to see the symbolism in this dream. What's interesting is that in the GQ article, James Cameron says that he has a very active dream life. And he is on record as having dreamed scenes that became The Terminator and a scene that was in Alien. But Pandora was his first. Here is what he dreamed. I want to tell you what he says the dream was, and then I will look at the symbolism. He says that he dreamed of a kind of bioluminescent forest with these trees that look kind of like fiber optic lamps, and this river that was glowing bioluminescent particles and kind of purple moss on the ground that lit up when you walked on it. And these kinds of lizards that didn't look like much until they took off. And then they turned into these rotating fans, kind of like living frisbees, and they come down and land on something. And then he says that he woke up really excited and drew it all. So to interpret this dream, we don't have like a plot or we know what was happening. We just know the scene that he saw. And actually, you don't have to have a plot to interpret a dream or for a dream to have meaning. You can just see things. A dream can be really, really short and it can still have meaning. So I looked at symbolism. Again, we don't have James Cameron to talk to and say, what does bioluminescence mean to you? Or what does the forest mean to you, right? We don't have him to talk to about this. So I use the dream dictionary, dreammoods.com, which I linked down below, which is a dictionary that has what most symbols mean to most people. It's not what every symbol means to every single person, but it's what's the most common meaning for dreams, and that's what I generally talk about on this channel. See if you can see some of the themes that are happening in his life in this dream. So for example, a forest represents a transitional phase. Okay, so we were already like, oh, wait a minute, he's in a transitional phase. He is in the process in his life of leaving school. He's already switched from physics to English, and then he leaves school and goes and decides to just, go work for a living. And so we already see that that is happening in the dream symbolism as well. Being in a forest can also represent wanting to escape to a simpler way of life and feeling weighed down by the demands of life. So I feel like that's probably makes sense that someone who's 19 years old, who's moved cross country a few years earlier, might be feeling those kinds of things. The bioluminescence is really interesting. So this is a theme that comes up throughout the dream. And as you see, when we look at symbols, more than one symbol has the same similar meaning. So if you have multiple symbols in a dream and they all have similar meanings, that's like really underlining that meaning. So for example, in this dream, there's bioluminescence, there's glowing things, there's lamp-like figures, okay? So he's got these lamp-like trees that he mentions. So bioluminescence is a glowing kind of thing, and it can mean a couple of different things. So in this case, it may be saying it's time to step out of your shadow and shine, and highlighting, but often if you're in a dream and things are glowing or they're shiny or they're sparkly, that's your subconscious pointing these things out and trying to say, hey, look at this and look at this. So what we're going to do is look at the different items that were glowing and see if that enhances the meaning of that item. Another thing that glowing represents is that there's new light on something, or there's understanding and some enlightenment, and that shows up in one of the other symbols. So remember that. All right, so he dreams about moss, and moss represents patience, and it represents extremely slow progress on a project. And so this could be a couple of things. He may have been in a position in his life where he's like, I just want to hurry up and go live. I know when I was that age, that's how I felt. I just want to get out and live my life. And I actually took a break between high school and college and just worked before I went to college. So that is a little bit of a way that people feel at that age. So he could have been feeling like everything was just going really, really slow, and that's what the moss represented in his dream. Let's look at the fact that the moss is purple. So purple represents insight. Now it also can represent protection. And so those are two words that show up throughout the meanings, the symbols in the dream. So insight and protection. Next, let's look at these lizards that he describes. So there are these lizards with like this frisbee or this spinning wheel on them. And if you've seen the movie, you see a creature like that in the movie. Now that often happens in dreams where the brain will combine things in the real world into a new kind of thing or a creature in your dream world. And what that often means is that it's a combining of those two symbols, right? It's trying to take elements from those two symbols and put it together. And so that's why we're going to look at this kind of frisbee spinning wheel lizard, say that 3 times fast, and it's glowing and it's orange, and see what that means. A frisbee can represent an easygoing attitude, the give and take of life, or the give and take of a situation. And I was like, well, that kind of you can see, but when I looked up a spinning wheel, which is another way that you could describe a frisbee, that represents creativity. And so now we start to see the creativity symbol that's coming up in the dream. There's some more in a minute. Another thing that according to Dream Moods, and I quote, that a spinning wheel represents is that you have the ability to create something out of seemingly nothing. So this is James Cameron's subconscious being aware and letting him know you can create things out of seemingly nothing. You are like uber creative, and he is, right? So the other thing that a spinning wheel can represent is the feeling that you're not going anywhere, that you're getting nowhere very fast. So that's again likely the feeling he was having that we can see because he did leave school. So he may have been feeling at that time, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm going around in circles. This isn't working for me. So you can see that within a symbol you can have a couple of different meanings, and they can both be true. A lizard represents a couple of different things. It represents instincts, so an instinctual kind of thing. So he's tapping into his instincts. It can represent anxieties about your instincts. So again, he's in this kind of transitory decision-making part of his life, and he may be having anxieties around trusting himself. But a lizard also represents emerging creativity. And so here we see creativity again. Not only is the lizard representing emerging creativity, but then it's spinning. It's got this spinning wheel on it that also represents creativity. So those two things together, that's why the spinning wheel is on the lizard, to really highlight the creativity meaning of the symbol. So this is all about his emerging creativity. And orange, the lizards are orange, he says. Orange can represent a couple of different things, but the things that I think it represents here in this dream are new interests and liveliness. So again, he is being told by his subconscious, you have some new interests, and you are very creative, and really highlighting that. Then he describes these fiber optic glowing trees and tree lamp kind of thing. So it's a fiber optic lamp tree. And if you've seen the movie, you see the glowing trees, and I'll put in a picture of what a fiber optic lamp looks like. That was pretty new in the 70s when he had this dream, 73, 74. So a lamp can represent a few different things, which I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll tell you the one I think it means in this dream. A lamp can represent guidance or hope or inspiration, enlightenment, there's that word again, or reassurance. Again, it can mean all those things. I think this one means enlightenment because we're already seeing some enlightenment with the bioluminescence and the glowing. There's some reassurance in the dream because it's telling him you're going to be okay as you make whatever changes you're making, and your creativity is going to help you. But hope is the one that stands out to me for this reason, because a tree represents new hopes and growth and knowledge. Again, the lamp tree makes hope. It's got hope twice, so that really underlines that meaning in the dream. So this is a dream about new hopes and hope, and it makes sense that he would have a dream about that as he's in this process of leaving school and going out and figuring out what he's going to do with his life. If you like what you're hearing so far, go ahead please and click the like button so that more people can find out about this dream and what it means when they have a creative dream as well. Thank you. Another meaning of tree is protection, which we already heard protection with the purple. So there's some elements and symbolism of protection in the dream. And then a tree means that you are concentrating on your own self-development and individuation, which is exactly what he's doing in this process. As a 19-year-old, he's pretty much becoming an adult. He's focusing on his self-development. He's deciding to leave school and go out on his own and see who he is. So the tree symbol makes a lot of sense. Now, what about the fact that the tree has this fiber optic element to it, and it's glowing and bioluminescent like everything else in the forest? So again, that highlights the enlightenment and the new light, the new understanding of these symbols and these meanings, right? But I looked up, fiber optic, of course, is not in the dictionary, but if you look up what fiber optic cables are, they're transparent and light flows through them. So then we get the meaning transparent, meaning there's feelings of vulnerability is what that symbolizes, able to see things and understand people and their motives, and maybe kind of start to understand your own self. So it's about understanding and awareness, clarity and understanding. So that's what I think the fiber optic tree imagery is all about, is clarity and understanding and new hopes and becoming who he really is, which is exactly where he's at. Now, he also mentions this river that is also bioluminescent, and a river can represent either going with the flow, or it can also represent the fact, or it can be a message from your subconscious that it's time to take decisive action. So he sees this river, he's kind of going with the flow, but he's in a transitory phase in his life, and the river is saying, it's time to take action. Time to take action, dreamer. And he does. He takes action at this time in his life. And another symbol that's in the dream that he mentions that also talks about changing your life is the fan. So going back to the lizards that have that fan, that frisbee, the spinning wheel on it, a fan is also talking about changes in your life. So this is a really cool dream with really cool symbolism around creativity, around making a transition, around having greater understanding and clarity, and feeling called to something else, being ready, feeling like things are going really slowly with the moss, and the river saying, but you can, make some changes right now, and you can trust in your instincts, the lizards. You can trust in your instincts. You can trust in your creativity, and you will be protected, the purple and the trees, and you will be okay. So I just really love knowing that this dream was, that James Cameron had this dream at that time in his life when he was so young. And then what's so cool is that happened in 1974. 1973 to 1974. He doesn't make Avatar until like 2009 or something like that. I'll have to check to make sure I have the right date. So if I didn't say the right one, it'll appear somewhere on the screen here. But that's a long time to hold that dream, to hold that image. So the image really stuck with him. And I believe the reason it did is because of all the glowing, the bioluminescence, the shininess of it. That's why our subconscious will sometimes shine things in our dreams. Another way our subconscious gets our attention is through scary, intense feelings. So if you have a scary, intense feeling dream, that's another thing where your subconscious is wanting to get your attention, is highlighting something that you are really focusing on or that you need to focus on. And what's interesting is later in what I was reading, when he has the Terminator dream, or the dream that leads to the Terminator idea, he's again in a time of intense drama and feelings and things happening in his career. So it's kind of interesting to kind of map those dreams through his life, not just through his creative process. So I want to thank James Cameron for talking about his dreams. I think more people should talk about their dreams, especially when they lead to their creativity, but also when they lead to the life changes they make, because we often do have dreams at very intense times of change and transformation and transition. And more people talking about it is always a good thing. So I think it's really fun to look at dreams that are in movies and interpret those as well. So the next video here is going to be pointing you to the dream in Princess Bride, Buttercup's dream, and what that can mean, which is really interesting, because often in movies you think, oh, they just made it up. And I don't know if they do or not. I don't think they looked into a dream dictionary, but often because dream symbols are very shared and very common, they might automatically put into a dream that they're making up, that a screenwriter wrote, they are putting in some symbols, and then come to find out, hey, they actually do make sense for that character or that person. So go ahead and watch that video next. You can follow me over on Instagram at Caryndreams. Please go ahead and click the subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos. Thank you for watching this one, and I'll see you next time.